Say that Taliban doesn't he? The Taliban are here!
Please. You fucking said that before. Fuck me.
In 2006, amidst the turmoil of war, the U.S. Army established outposts in northern Afghanistan with the dual purpose of combating insurgency and fostering connections with the local population, encouraging them to abandon their weapons. One such outpost, PRT Kamdesh, was nestled in a remote valley encircled by imposing mountains, a location that many regarded as a perilous trap. One night, a fresh team of soldiers arrived at Kamdesh, their spirits low about the assignment. However, they soon bonded with the seasoned soldiers already stationed there. Underneath one of the bunk beds, they discovered the haunting words, "It doesn't get better." The following morning, as the newcomers surveyed their daunting surroundings, the experienced soldiers recounted how insurgents utilized the mountains for surprise attacks. Just then, they stumbled upon a stray dog, and when Zahid prepared to shoot it, Skuza intervened, advocating for the dog's rescue and adoption as a pet. Suddenly, chaos erupted as insurgents opened fire from the mountains. The soldiers instinctively sought cover while returning fire, dodging explosions that rocked the outpost. Caught off guard and running low on ammunition, Carter was dispatched to fetch more supplies. In a mix-up, he received the wrong type of ammo and had to dash back amidst the ongoing conflict. Despite the confusion, the soldiers maintained their defense and launched a mortar strike that successfully neutralized their target, securing a brief victory. Afterward, tension flared when Gallegos confronted Younger for firing too close to his head during the skirmish. Upon Carter's return with the correct ammunition, he faced reprimand for arguing during battle. Nearby, they discovered a severely injured man who had lost part of his face, prompting urgent calls for a medic. Later, they received news that their wounded comrade had successfully emerged from surgery and would soon rejoin them. Meanwhile, Captain Keating reprimanded a young soldier caught smoking marijuana. Understanding that financial penalties held little weight in their situation, Keating demoted him to private and revoked his free time. The next day, Keating emphasized the need to strengthen ties with the local community and organized a shura, a traditional Muslim council meeting, to discuss critical issues with village elders. When they arrived at the shura building, Keating demonstrated goodwill by leaving his weapons and protective gear outside. With Muhammad acting as their interpreter, he conveyed his intention to protect civilians from Taliban influence while offering financial assistance and contracts. At that moment, another soldier completed a gunshot residue test revealing that one of the guards was implicated in the previous day's attack. Keating knew he had to report this information, risking dishonor among the elders. After intense discussions, the elders agreed to disarm, and Keating shared an embrace with their leader. That evening, the soldiers celebrated their small victories by grilling meat, sharing drinks, recounting stories from home, and dancing to music under the stars. However, tranquility was short-lived. The following day brought renewed violence as insurgents again opened fire from the mountains. The soldiers quickly took cover and retaliated, but this engagement was brief. Later on, Hart dragged Younger out of his room in a fit of anger for stealing a picture of his wife for some private moments. Hart forced Younger to perform push-ups while apologizing to the photograph, yet Younger defiantly kissed it anyway. Meanwhile, Keating receives orders to transport a large tactical vehicle to Nae, despite the warnings from his comrades about the perilous, narrow roads ahead. He insists that orders must be followed, even volunteering to take the wheel himself. For the next few hours, a small truck leads the massive vehicle along treacherous mountain paths, where its size proves cumbersome and its tires frequently teeter perilously close to the edge. As night falls, they are forced to halt upon detecting an obstruction ahead. Upon closer inspection, they discover it is merely a dead chicken. The guiding truck continues forward but nearly pushes Carter off the road, only for Romiche to intervene just in time. However, as they attempt to move forward, the tactical vehicle slips off the edge and explodes, tragically claiming the lives of Keating and the soldiers inside. Upon returning to the outpost, the fallen soldiers are honored with a proper funeral. Some time later, Yulskis arrives as the new captain of the outpost. The soldiers welcome him, sharing their experiences and detailing the ongoing issues with insurgent attacks from the mountains. Suddenly, an explosion erupts nearby, and insurgents begin firing from above. One soldier, caught off guard while showering, rushes to assist his comrades clad only in his birthday suit. After repelling the attack, Yulskis orders a patrol. The soldiers comply but grumble about the futility of their mission as they walk. Seizing the opportunity, Romiche instructs them on how an effective assault could exploit the outpost's vulnerabilities to target supply buildings and generators. A few days later, Kirk spots a local man photographing the area and gives chase. The man nearly escapes but collides with another soldier, falling and allowing Kirk to apprehend him. The team discovers his phone and the incriminating photos within it. He is cuffed while Thompson stands guard, sharing a poignant backstory about the scars on his arm. Another shura is convened, but this time only half of the village elders attend. They express their frustration over the unfulfilled promises of financial support from Keating. Yilskaz responds firmly, stating that payment will only follow an investigation into the photographs on the captured man's phone. That evening, Muhammad returns from the village with alarming news. The Taliban are preparing for a large-scale attack due to growing discontent among villagers over the lack of funds. However, his warnings fall on deaf ears. His frequent alerts have led many to dismiss him as crying wolf. Later, Yilskaz leads another patrol while Muhammad listens intently to the radio for enemy communications, admitting he struggles with certain dialects. As they reach a bridge, Kirk and Carter cross first to ensure its safety. Yilskaz follows closely behind with Younger when an explosion rips through the bridge. Younger manages to escape, but Yilskaz plunges into the water below, lifeless. Blood splatters onto Younger's face and mouth, leaving him in a state of shock. That night, in an attempt to cope with their grief, the soldiers gather around music. Romy Shea hears a noise and investigates, only to find Younger trembling and mumbling incoherently to himself while gripping his weapon tightly, a haunting reminder of their shared trauma and the fragility of their existence in such a volatile environment. As Romy Shea speaks soothingly, he methodically removes the bullets from the weapon, sharing the harrowing memory of witnessing a close friend succumb to a sniper's fire. The weight of this trauma is evident in Younger, who, unable to cope, decides to leave when a helicopter arrives to retrieve Yilskaz's body. This helicopter also brings Broward, the new commanding officer, who delivers unsettling news. The outpost will be closing in July, and he instructs the soldiers to focus on winding down operations until then. The following day, the soldiers present Broward with an Afghan ID discovered near the bridge, suspecting it belongs to a worker from the hydroelectric plant. Eager to investigate the nearby villages, they are met with Broward's firm refusal, citing adherence to the rules of engagement and directing them to leave such matters to the investigating officer. Despite Romy Shea's passionate objections, his concerns fall on deaf ears. As time passes, the soldiers strive to maintain their daily routines. However, another attack erupts from the mountains. While some soldiers return fire, Romy Shea urgently calls for backup from Broward, who insists on positive identification of the enemy's weapon before responding. Scuzzy uses his binoculars to confirm the threat, prompting a contingent of soldiers to engage. Once the assault subsides, Broward reiterates the importance of following the rules of engagement, emphasizing that they cannot simply shoot at anyone who appears suspicious without proper identification. Romy Shea argues that they were clearly under fire, but Broward remains resolute, unwilling to waste ammunition or jeopardize relations with the local populace. Ultimately, Broward announces that due to pressure from the Afghan president, their departure in July is cancelled. Instead, the soldiers will receive a $1,000 raise and may not leave until October. While they comply with his orders, resentment towards Broward grows daily, particularly as he exhibits unprofessional behavior by urinating in bottles and expecting the soldiers to dispose of them. Later during lunch, Carter confides in Bunderman about the troops' increasing disdain for Broward. They perceive him as fearful and ineffective, only leaving his office for bathroom breaks. Bunderman counters this perspective by reminding them that Broward has more combat experience than all of them combined and that their duty is to follow his orders. As rain begins to fall, Carter shivers while on guard duty, engaging Gallegos in a radio conversation about religion. That night, movement is spotted in the mountains, followed by a distant explosion. Broward permits the soldiers to respond with a mortar as a warning but initially miscalculates the coordinates. Fortunately, the team corrects him just in time, allowing for a successful counterattack. The next morning brings a meeting to assess their situation. The fact that insurgents are moving mortars at night suggests they now possess night vision capabilities, although their source remains unknown. The meeting is abruptly interrupted by local elders who arrive carrying the body of a deceased girl, accusing the Americans of her death. The soldiers recognize that she has been dead for several days and suspect the Taliban orchestrated this ploy to manipulate them. Nevertheless, Broward decides to compensate the elders to prevent further conflict. In a shocking turn of events, one elder suddenly cries out in pain after being bitten by a dog, leaving it unclear whether he provoked the animal intentionally or not. Muhammad conveys the deep cultural significance of a dog bite, which is considered profoundly shameful, prompting the elders to demand retribution. In a swift and brutal response, Broward shoots the dog before reprimanding Scuzza for having a pet amidst the chaos of war. Later, in an attempt to cope with their grim reality, the soldiers engage in a macabre game, testing their endurance against waterboarding. Their moment of levity is abruptly shattered when Broward informs them that he has been relieved of duty and that a new captain will arrive in a couple of weeks. He also delivers the unsettling news that the outpost will officially close on October 6. Bunderman is appointed as the interim leader until the new captain's arrival, reminding the soldiers they can still communicate with their families but must refrain from mentioning the impending closure to prevent sensitive information from reaching the enemy. As they rush to connect with their loved ones, emotions run high upon hearing news from home. However, early on the morning of October 3, 2009, Muhammad bursts into the outpost, frantically warning that all the villagers have fled and that hundreds of Taliban fighters are surrounding them. Initially dismissed, his claims are soon validated when the soldiers use binoculars to survey the mountains. Explosions begin to rock their camp, forcing the soldiers out of their beds to join the defense team. A fierce firefight erupts as insurgents charge down the mountain. One soldier narrowly escapes injury when a bullet ricochets off his helmet. Bunderman rushes to the communications room but stumbles as an explosion erupts behind him. The surveillance cameras reveal that insurgents have completely encircled the outpost, leaving no safe haven. In desperation, Bunderman calls for assistance over the radio, only to learn that air support won't arrive for another 2 hours. Thompson gears up and bravely rushes out to help but is tragically killed almost immediately. The remaining soldiers scramble for long-range weapons and vehicles for cover, maintaining their fire despite dwindling ammunition. Carter sprints into the supply room to retrieve more ammo, but time is slipping away. As chaos reigns, various soldiers seek refuge inside different trucks. Meanwhile, Romichet races around the base, barking orders and firing back at any visible enemy on the mountainside. Kirk hides in a building to switch weapons but is caught in an explosion that knocks him unconscious. His comrades quickly drag him back inside for safety. The dire situation becomes increasingly apparent as Zahid desperately approaches Bunderman. A furious Bunderman tells Zahid to do whatever he can for now and pushes him out of the building. In the infirmary, the scant medical staff are overwhelmed with patients and unable to assist on the front lines. Amidst this turmoil, a soldier volunteers to retrieve Kirk, navigating through gunfire and explosions, falling multiple times along the way. Eventually reaching Kirk's location, he and others manage to place him on a stretcher and begin moving him toward the infirmary while dodging heavy fire. In the supply room, chaos reigns as everyone scrambles for ammunition to fortify their defenses. Scuzza is tasked with delivering ammo to those trapped in a vehicle but is tragically shot down as soon as he exits the building. The atmosphere is thick with desperation as each moment becomes a fight for survival against overwhelming odds. Amidst the chaos, other soldiers launch gas grenades for cover and carry Scuzza's lifeless body to the infirmary. Tragically, by the time they arrive, Scuzza has succumbed to his injuries. Kirk clings to life, but his pulse is alarmingly weak. Carter, determined to make a difference, gathers as much ammunition as he can carry and races through the base, expertly seeking shelter from the explosions that threaten him at every turn. He finally reaches one of the vehicles, where another soldier jumps in alongside him, and together they distribute the precious ammo. Romichet stealthily navigates the outpost, utilizing any weapon he can scavenge along the way. Suddenly, a grenade detonates nearby, forcing him to leap aside. Despite his efforts, shrapnel wounds his arm. He radios an apology to the soldiers in the truck, fearing he won't reach them in time. Undeterred, Romichet enters a building to devise a new plan of attack with fellow soldiers. He then heads to the infirmary to check on Kirk, only to find that he has already passed away. Consumed by rage, Romichet seizes a weapon and storms out, determined to locate and eliminate the enemy sniper responsible for their losses. The firefight rages on, punctuated by relentless explosions. Hart carries ammo to another group stationed in a truck, but as they attempt to drive away, their vehicle becomes stuck on a bump. In that critical moment, they realize the Taliban have breached their perimeter. Forced to abandon the vehicle, they engage the enemy in combat. However, Hart is quickly shot down, followed by the others until only one soldier remains alive. He races to inform Romichet, who teams up with Zahid to fire at any enemy combatants in sight. Meanwhile, in the comms room, Bunderman receives word that reinforcements are en route. Their immediate strategy is to hunker down and endure, but Romichet bursts in with a bold suggestion: they must retake the base. He explains that there is still ample ammunition in the supply room and proposes they block the main gate. Just as an explosion rocks the comms building, Bunderman grants Romichet permission to proceed. He also cuts all communications to prevent the enemy from intercepting their transmissions, leaving those trapped in trucks without updates on the dire situation. Frustrated by inaction, Gallegos and Carter's group decides to take matters into their own hands. They leap from the truck and sprint forward while Carter provides cover fire. However, Gallegos soon falls, forcing Carter to retreat back into the truck with another soldier. In a moment of compassion, he spots a wounded man crawling desperately across the ground and feels compelled to help. Initially deterred by his partner's caution, they ultimately agree on a plan to provide cover. Carter rushes out, quickly reaches the injured soldier, stabilizes his leg, and carries him back to safety in one swift motion. Gathering a team of volunteers, Romeshay stealthily maneuvers around the camp, ignoring Bunderman's orders to wait for a machine gun. The group begins firing at the insurgents infiltrating their base, pushing forward despite thick smoke obscuring their vision. After taking down wave after wave of attackers, they reach the front gate where Romeshay secures a strategic position. Just as he prepares to engage the enemies on the mountain, a bomb falls from above, an unmistakable sign of air support arriving. With helicopters and bombers raining destruction upon their foes, Carter seizes the opportunity to leave the truck once more. Armed with renewed determination, he continues firing while reaching for a radio to confirm that the airstrike is indeed on their side. He swiftly returns to the vehicle, where the group urgently uses the radio to contact Bunderman. He informs them that a massive bomb is imminent, and they must evacuate independently. Without hesitation, Carter and his partner lift the wounded soldier onto a stretcher and sprint with all their might. Miraculously, they reach the infirmary just in time, where the doctor, faced with no other options, selflessly donates his own blood for the transfusions. Soon, all the survivors rally together, offering their blood to aid their injured comrades. When the new captain arrives with reinforcements, they find that much of the base has been ravaged by the bombing. A few insurgents remain, prompting a search of the mountainous terrain to neutralize any remaining threats. Meanwhile, at the outpost, the survivors meticulously comb through every corner, gathering the fallen and discovering Muhammad hiding in a cabinet, ready to deliver his ominous "I told you so." As the new captain steps into the base, Bunderman tearfully reports their devastating losses. The captain commends him for his leadership during such trying times and announces plans to obliterate the outpost before their departure. That night, the few surviving soldiers gather for one final song, a poignant farewell before their helicopters whisk them away. As they ascend into the sky, they witness the explosion that completes the destruction of the outpost, a bittersweet moment tinged with sorrow as they learn that the man Carter saved did not survive. In recognition of their bravery, all are awarded stars for their service, while Carter and Romeshay receive medals of honor, marking them as part of the most decorated unit of the war. 3 days later, at a new base, the soldiers finally have the opportunity to call their loved ones. However, Carter struggles with his experiences. During a session with a psychologist, he suffers a PTSD-induced breakdown that leaves him gasping for breath, prompting the psychologist to help him regain his composure. In the aftermath of the Battle of Kamdesh, an investigation reveals that faulty leadership and inadequate defenses were to blame for the catastrophic events. This failure leads to the closure of all obviously indefensible outposts. Remarkably, this battle marks the first time in 50 years that medals of honor have been awarded to living soldiers. Thank you for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more recaps. Until next time, have a nice day.